Now, Li Han seems cautious of him because he mentioned to our boy that it was surprising to see him so interested in joining the magic department. Li Han remembered that he was not like that before. As we know, our boy is not the real Han Siha. The real Han Siha had previously been eager, in dark magic. Li Han, while reaching out for a handshake, said these words casually, implying he was looking forward to working with him. With no choice but to cooperate, our boy shook his hand, stating that he was just like him, implying that they both disliked black magic. However, our boy's situation was not easy, because Li Han seemed insistent on knowing more about him. Li Han asked if he was feeling okay and, while getting close, whispered that he heard they were trapped in the dungeon right before the practical exam. Hearing this, our boy's reaction showed a bit of shock. However, somehow, Li Han eased the tense atmosphere by saying he found our boy intriguing, mentioning that even with Adele there, an ordinary student wouldn't have survived the Errors dungeon. He was curious about what kind of magic our boy had used. Our boy was surprised Li Han knew about it, as the professor had decided to keep the incident under wraps. He wondered how Li Han knew about it. Our boy admitted that Li Han was incredibly meticulous, to the point where it was hard to read his thoughts or understand what he was thinking. Additionally, Li Han had a sharp, no-nonsense personality, a real typical protagonist. In other words, the boy believes that any evil force must be eradicated. Li Han's perception seemed righteous. Nevertheless, our boy wondered if Li Han already suspected he was part of a dark magic organization. Perhaps that's why Li Han had approached him, wanting to observe if he was a threat that needed to be eliminated. This created a tense atmosphere around our boy. After that, the scene shifted. We see our boy heading to his room, thinking about the rumors that the academy had built a new dormitory, with interiors almost at the level of a 5-star hotel. As he saw the dorm, he stopped for a moment, standing there, seeing luxurious and expensive decor. He walked inside, looking around to find his room. When he finally saw his room and opened the door, he was surprised to find a guy inside who was shocked to see him. The guy shouted in surprise, asking if he was Han Siha while pointing at him. Our boy seemed a bit confused and asked him why he was so surprised to see him. The guy, with a bright face and seeming genuinely amazed, said he was thrilled to have a roommate who was a superstar, the famous student who had made the creek cry and defeated it, even causing the royalty to weep. Hearing this, our boy felt a bit embarrassed by what the guy said. However, when royalty was suddenly mentioned, he recalled that after their promotion ceremony ended, the boy Fabian Edwin had started to pick a fight with him, demanding to know why a royal like him was in necromancy while our boy was in the magic department. In response, our boy decided to scare Fabian a little by revealing that Fabian was not a pure-blooded royal son. In short, he wasn't truly royalty, saying this in a low voice. Because of this, Fabian was shocked and scared, asking how he knew that. But, our boy, with a kind yet annoyed expression, advised Fabian while scratching his head, saying it would be better for him not to disturb him, to keep quiet, and to stop being so loud because it was irritating. He implied that he wouldn't expose his secret. Because of this, Fabian began apologizing to him, saying sorry for the trouble he had caused. He was also feeling down, explaining that the reason he didn't get into the magic department was that he wasn't good enough and felt unworthy of it. While he was crying, our boy was shocked to see him in tears and told him to stop crying, addressing him rather harshly as a fucker, because he was worried it would attract the attention of their classmates. However, it was too late. Their classmates saw what was happening, and there they went again, gossiping and talking about him. They were surprised that Han Siha, our boy, had made Fabian cry and said he was too harsh. Hearing this, our boy hadn't expected the situation to turn out like this. So he felt embarrassed and cursed the idiot Fabian, thinking that because of him, his plan to be a model student and graduate safely was at risk of failing. Back in their dorm, our boy was thinking about the mixed reactions he was getting, sighing about it. The boy introduced himself as One, mentioning that he was also assigned to the magic department. With an idolizing expression, One said it was nice to meet him, adding that even though he wasn't as famous as Han Siha, he had never heard about him before. However, our boy knew otherwise, recognizing One's name. He realized that Wan was one of Li Han's most reliable allies in the story. a light-hearted character with sharp judgment and high versatility. Most importantly, Juan had a well-connected information network. Seeing our boy suddenly stunned, Juan asked if something was wrong, but our boy just sighed, thinking about how unlucky he was to keep meeting all the protagonists. He muttered to himself that at this rate, everyone around him seemed to be part of a plot to kill him as Han Siha. However, he shrugged it off and told Juan it was nothing, though Juan didn't quite believe him. Juan felt something was off, because our boy was sighing so deeply. Noticing this, he invited our boy to join him for a tour of the dorm after he finished unpacking his belongings, boasting that he had a guide map and saying it would be fun and enjoyable to explore with a friend tagging along. Let's say it was a bonding time for them as roommates. But anyway, while our boy thought about it twice and seemed worried, in the end, he decided to go along. The two of them went to the dormitory cafeteria. As they stood there, one told him that there were rumors from their upperclassmen that it was better to eat outside than to dine there. Our boy asked why and what was wrong with the cafeteria food. One explained that the nutrition there was like experimental food and tasted as bad as shit, which is why no one ever ate there. He added that he thought the students hated the food so much that they had complained about it. Our boy didn't want to eat there either. After they finished criticizing the cafeteria, they went to the magic training field, where they could practice freely and endlessly. One warned him that if he passed by carelessly, he might get hit and end up in the infirmary. Hearing this, our boy suggested setting up a magic barrier there, to which one replied that it was a good idea. One praised him for being smarter than the rumors suggested, teasing our boy in the process. Our boy seemed annoyed by his sharp and exaggerated judgment, but he ignored Juan's words and suggested they go see the field. While Juan continued his talkative chatter, our boy thought that even though Juan often threw pointless comments at him, he had to admit he was gaining a lot of useful information. So he commented that Juan's remarks were actually quite helpful for him. After they finished exploring, Juan suggested that since they had seen enough, they should head back to their room. Suddenly, the sky grew darker, and Juan, noticing this, mentioned that it looked like it was going to rain. However, our boy thought to himself that this was no ordinary rain or simple storm cloud. It was a poisonous, deadly rain. He stopped Juan and insisted they go to the main building to inform their professor, warning him that the raindrops were dangerous. Juan felt something was off and was confused about why Han Siha suddenly stopped. Meanwhile, our boy stood there quietly, recalling the scene with its eerie atmosphere, where even the lawn became soaked and muddied by the rain that was indeed laced with deadly poison. The students were now in a chaotic situation. Some were shouting warnings not to go outside because the raindrops were mixed with poison. Panic spread as some students noticed others were missing, including Adele and Solia, causing even more worry. Seeing the mess, our boy thought to himself that the Black Magician organization seemed to be making a move, aiming to kidnap promising and talented students to use them as hostages in their plan to conquer Ardell Academy and bring it under their control. He realized this was the beginning of what was called the dormitory kidnapping incident. At that moment, his system informed him that the main objective of episode 4 of their story was to save and help his future wives survive. Just kidding, but anyway. The system screen displayed that his task was to find the missing students and retrieve them. It also showed that if he failed to do so, he would receive a penalty of handsomeness. But since our boy didn't have any handsomeness to lose, he decided to ignore it. Now the scene shifted to the forest, where Adele and Solia were sitting tied up and trapped inside a tree. Adele, clearly pissed off, began shouting because she couldn't use any magic or do anything to free herself. Solia advised her not to waste her energy, pointing out that the vines binding them were not simple to break. Hearing this, Adele became even angrier, asking Solia why she hadn't told her that earlier. Solia replied that she had been trying to find a weak spot in the vines, but hadn't come up with any clear solution yet. Adele told her she understood what she meant, then began to wonder why the mysterious man in the black robe had locked them inside the huge tree and left them there. She thought she hadn't offended anyone so much that they would want to kill her, and that she wasn't worth targeting for any significant reason. But unlike her, Solia had a different situation. She was just a commoner without a family to back her up, while Solia had all of that. Thinking this, Adele suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu, as it reminded her of when she and Han Siha were trapped in the error dungeon. But remembering our boy's face and figure only made her more agitated, wondering why she was thinking of someone who wouldn't even realize her situation. She guessed that our boy was probably asleep in his dorm. Seeing her so fired up, Solia misunderstood why Adele was wasting her strength, even though she had advised her not to. Solia then said she figured out that the tree might be weak to light, because she noticed the sky and clouds outside were black, like a black mist covering the sky. Adele thought about it too and agreed that Solia might be right, as she remembered that was the last thing they saw before they were abducted and trapped. Solia explained that it seemed to be an artificially created dense black cloud that obscured the view. She pointed out that there was a tree trunk rising up as if piercing the sky, and added that usually spaces are designed with artificial clouds to allow sunlight through unless there is a specific reason not to. She said this while looking up, and Adele, amazed at her intelligence, told her it was an impressive feat to analyze and solve the situation. Solia added that she would fight back, explaining that the magic that attacked the other students, including them, with toxic rain was definitely black magic. She said that the best magic to counter black magic was light magic, like the purification of the earth skill she possessed. Adele, however, seemed worried, knowing that while Solia's skill was powerful and of a second-class level, she wondered if it would work in such a confined space. But there was no other solution, so she agreed with Solia's decision and told her she would leave everything to her, knowing she couldn't help much. Hearing this, Solia sighed for a moment, closed her eyes, and began chanting a spell. As she spoke the words of her incantation, a light began to envelop her body. Watching this, Adele thought that if the amount of light was that much, then maybe it could be successful. Suddenly, a voice spoke up, telling them to stop fooling around. Solia was surprised when the tree moved and attacked her, interrupting her spell. She appeared hurt and exhausted. The tree then spoke, telling her it wouldn't work, and that no matter how much potential she had, she was just a second-year student, not strong enough to defeat them. As the tree said this, it released a black fog, making it hard for Solia to breathe. The fog also seemed to creep into her mind, corrupting her thoughts. The tree then proposed something to her, calling it sweeter than death, saying he could restore her fallen house. In her confused state, he told her he knew she had suffered greatly upon entering the academy and losing everything she once had. He lectured her on how stubbornly she had held on until now, and said she seemed to be reaching her limits. He offered her his power so she could easily survive and return home, suggesting that his proposal might be too tempting to resist. Under the influence of the fog, her mind seemed muddled, and she couldn't think straight. Just then, Adele spoke up, cutting off the conversation, and shouted for Solia to hold on to herself. She reminded her that her own life had not been easy either, and she had also suffered, so they needed to fight equally, despite the hardships they faced. Adele then confronted the tree, demanding to know why he started with Solia and not with her, asking if she was that easy to deal with. The tree seemed intrigued and amazed by her bravery, noting how she didn't collapse or give in, even under the effects of his fog. He commented on their exceptional talent, hinting that the organization's motive was to recruit them. The tree then made a proposal to her as well. While Adele noted that now that the tree was focused on her, it could give Solia time to recover and come back to her senses. She thought that the fog probably had a mental magic effect that reflected and eroded their opponent's desires. This meant that if she could just hold on with sheer willpower, she could overcome it. As she thought this, the tree said he would see what her desires were. Adele, trying to buy time for Solia to regain her senses, told him that she wouldn't listen to a tree spouting nonsense proposals. She was hoping Solia would come back to herself as soon as possible. Realizing she needed to stall for time, she decided she would have to fight the tree. She taunted him, saying that if he was brave and strong enough, he should come out and show himself, because hiding was for losers, weaklings, or maybe cowards. The tree seemed provoked by her words and became angry, unleashing his roots to attack her. He told her that his current form was more than enough to erase her. As Adele faced what seemed like her end, she realized that this could be where her story ended. She closed her eyes and accepted her fate, hoping someone might save them. But speaking of the devil, our boy suddenly appeared, casting a powerful spell that shot a beam of light at the tree. Seeing this light, Adele's hope was renewed. She was amazed by the powerful spell, thinking it was similar to Solia's light magic. But seeing that Solia hadn't overcome the brainwashing, she wondered who could have cast it. While our boy made an exaggerated entrance once again, he appeared and thanked one for giving him a hint about the tree's weakness, which helped them take it down. Seeing Han Siha, Adele was shocked and couldn't believe it, asking how he had found them and how he had created such a massive light spell. Our boy was surprised and amused by her reaction, noting that she was still so talkative despite having almost died. One then explained that the light they saw was actually just a small light spell, considered basic magic, which they had amplified using a magical magnifier from their bag. After Juan's explanation, our boy asked Adele if she was okay. She sarcastically replied that of course she was fine, and asked if he thought she was a loser like him. Kidding aside, hearing her talkative nature, he suggested they go and fight the guy together while he held her sword. Adele seemed happy about it because the sword was the one she used back when she was practicing on their training ground. So this is the end of the video. Always stay tuned. Also, you might comment down below because your opinion is valid. See you in the next chapter, and Sukren to all of you.